So Kepha, whom you know as Peter, the European boy. Anyway, his name is Kepha. Answered correctly. He answered correctly when the question was put forth. That very important kingdom question was put forth. Who do you personally say that I am? Kepha answers correctly in Luke chapter 9. We've already had a chance to look at that. In Luke chapter 9, when he said, but who do you say that I am? Kepha answered and said, you are Hamashiach. You are that prophet that is to come. You are the anointed one of Yahuwah. You are the visible image of the invisible Yahuwah. You are the arm of Yah that has been revealed. The question was, to whom have the arm of Yah been revealed? In Isaiah, and Kepha is answering the question. He's like, you're him. You are that mysterious son of Yah that we are to recognize and bow down to, which we find later is that you are the very offspring of Yah that has come to redeem your remnant. You are the offspring of Yah that have come to save us, to rescue us from not only this oppression, but you are here to rescue us from the enemy, from the wicked, from Hasatan, and from this untoward generation. So that's what he saw. And he was right. So the promised Messiah, remember this word, he didn't use the word Christ. He didn't say you are Christ. That's English translation of a Greek word, Christos, and it does not mean the exact same thing as Messiah. It's not the same as the Messiah. So when Kepha answers that, I want you to notice right after that, the statement that Yah makes, or Yahushua makes to his disciples. I want you to see it, because it's important. So he says, and he strictly charged them. This is verse 21. He strictly charged them and commanded them to tell no man this thing. Okay, so first of all, we got to understand that, because that's deep. So Kepha answers correctly. You are Hamashiach. You are the promised deliverer. You're the promised king. You're the promised visible image of the invisible Yah. You're the promised arm of Yah that would be revealed, the strength of Yah that would be revealed. You're the promised son of Yah that would be revealed. You're the offspring of Yah. Okay. And then Hamashiach says back to him, or back to them, he says, don't tell nobody. As a matter of fact, it's very strong language, even in the Greek. He says he straightly charged them and commanded them to tell no man that thing. Pause. Why not? I thought that was the whole purpose. And I want to answer that question because it has a lot to do with where he's going with the next line. So I looked up these words, obviously, so I could bring them to you. I want to show you the Hebrew mentality behind this, right? The Hebrew mindset, the Hebrew explanation, the Hebrew way of looking at what he was trying to tell the disciples. To be Hamashiach, the promised one, being Hamashiach, the visible image of the invisible Yah, actually Yah in human flesh, Yah's word made flesh and dwelling among us. There was something very important that the Messiah had to accomplish. When we examine the Torah, we do see the greatest work of our Messiah, which is ultimately the redemption and restoration of the remnant, which we see that in the fulfillment of the kingdom in the book of the Revelation. But before there is the total restoration of the remnant, which I believe we're getting close to that time now, before that happens, Hamashiach has to do some things. And what is that? He has to, he has to suffer. And that is the part of the biblical narrative that our ancestors at this particular time were choosing to ignore. They were focusing, they were focusing on the crown, but they refused to look at the cross, or the cross beam. They were focusing on the exaltation of Hamashiach, but little or no focus was being placed on the humiliation of Hamashiach. I'm talking about biblically, based on the covenant. So our ancestors during the time of Hamashiach were under Roman oppression. That's just a backdrop. It was a wicked, satanic, demonic, European oppression on our people in Israel, in the Holy Land, in Jerusalem, and in all of the promised land that was given to us. The Europeans were occupying our land, and they were mean and cruel and evil and oppressive. They pretty much could do whatever they wanted to do to us, and including murder us, and by and large hold themselves not guilty. Sound familiar? So the mind of the disciples were, and not just the disciples, the mind of everybody was that Messiah was coming to conquer the world immediately. So the idea of the verses in the Bible that had to do with his suffering, they kind of like pushed him to the back, or they didn't deal with him at all. Therefore, we see here Hamashiach, Yehoshua, strictly commanding them. I'm talking about charging them and commanding them not to tell no man that particular truth about him. So let's look at it from the Hebraic and not the English, because the word "tell no man" is so weak compared to the Hebraic meaning of that word. It doesn't mean just to say it and to talk about it. That's not what he's saying. At the time, what he was saying is that you all, I'm telling you not to publish that right now. The idea is to go out preaching this information right now, declaring it, not just saying it one to another. The word there in English is way too weak. The Hebraic word has to do with spreading the news. Spreading the news. Like big, right? Like throughout the world. Why? Because the people at the time were just looking for revolution. That's all they wanted. Wanted a revolution. And they were looking for a revolutionary. And they were looking for a person that would lead the revolution or lead the rebellion in order to bring Israel into a war with the Roman Empire, the Europeans that were occupying. They wanted someone that was going to pull an army together and go out and fight Rome and defeat them and depose Caesar, get rid of Herod, get rid of Pilate, get rid of every of their provinces. That's what they were looking for. And if the disciples of Hamashiach would have at this time published that message, the people would have begun to force or try to force a rebellion against the beast. The people would have immediately begun to gather for the purpose of war, the purpose of overthrow. It would have been a time where the people would have been willing to immediately take up all arms. Whatever they had, they were going to fight to the death. It would have been a bloody massacre. They wanted the beast off of them. They were wanting to fight. And so they were looking for the promised one. They were looking for the Messiah for that purpose. Do y'all see it? Okay, a couple more minutes on this, and then I'm going to move to my next point. So the Messiah, knowing that that's what they were thinking, and also knowing that publishing this information now would have caused a rebellion and would have caused a civil war against the beast, he says to them, this is not the time. This ain't the time for that. And they was like, what? No, this ain't the time. Okay, so if it's not the time for that, then what time is it? And here, he shows the world, or he shows the disciples, I should say. He shows the disciples what time it was when he was there with them. And that's how we enter into verse 22. He said, there's order to this. What's the order? I'm going to tell you. He said the order is, Son of Man must suffer many things. That's the part that the people were choosing to suppress. That's the part of the knowledge that the people were choosing to ignore, or maybe, I mean, they even probably tried to forget. What is that there would be this element of suffering connected to the Messiah, and that this suffering would not just be, like surface suffering. No. This would be the type of suffering that would eventually lead to his being totally rejected by the people. Totally rejected by the leadership, ultimately then killed by because remember, the heathen, there are no people worse than the heathen when it comes to torture. Just never forget that. Nobody can be that European when it comes to torture. This is not even close. Don't even try it. They don't even think that you can think of the wicked and evil ways that these Europeans can torture people. So that's just one of the things that they've done. They've always been able to do it. They got museums and history books. You can look it up, but it would make you sick to the stomach. You're going to really see how demonic that society was. One of the things that they would do, they had this way of causing their enemies to suffer in a way up until then was one of the worst forms of death that of ways to die, and it was called crucifixion. And it was such a painful and disgusting and wicked and diabolical form of capital punishment. It was so nasty. It was so dirty. It was so evil. It was so disgusting. It was so demonic. And it was, I don't have words, that even in the Bible, the Bible said, cursed is anyone who's hung on a tree. That form of, that kind of death, and this is not going to be a sermon, just a Bible study. Oh, my time is up already. It's not going to be a Bible study just on the idea of crucifixion, but I wanted to bring out the point that this would be the worst form of suffering, of dying and suffering at this point known to man. There was no worse form of public execution than crucifixion. And because my time is up, I told you I'm going to keep these videos short. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here, and without introduction, I'm going to pick up the next video right after this one so that you all can see where he's going as we go to the next question, the very important kingdom question of what does it profit a man or advantage a man if he gain the whole world and lose himself. So we'll get to that in the next video. But for now, I'm Dr. Yoshiyahu Dawid Ben Israel. I'm praying that these messages are helpful and insightful. I also pray that you would support the work of the Ark through tithes and offerings, and that you would keep us in prayer. And always, and also, Josh, we praying for you too, man. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I want everybody to know that we're praying for Josh. But y'all stay tuned for the next video as we go a little deeper into these important kingdom questions, because they are a matter of salvation. One love, Zion. Shalom.